Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Saturday, August 14th. This is your daily Buckeye Fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 19 days. Yes, we are in the teens. The Michigan game, 105 days away. We're almost under 100. This season's really, honestly, almost getting here. It is the craziest thing. Today is the first scrimmage of fall camp for Ohio State. It is also the day when Ohio State's coaches said they wanted to have a decent idea who was going to be starting for them in some key positions like, I don't know, quarterback. That scrimmage today is closed to the media, but no one can ever seem to keep out the wise men. Buckeye Scoop's ultimate insider, Nevada Buck, has been churning out incredible insider reports from every single practice this fall, thanks to those mysterious wise men. Nevada, I'm hoping we can count on you to let us know what's happening during this very important weekend as well.
Yeah, no, we should have some good reports and have some clarity, like you said, on some spots. Even I think, I think we've already got a pretty good idea of what we're gonna be seeing here when they line up against Minnesota. But this will be another data point, and we'll have a nice report sometime, probably a couple times this weekend.
Well, you will be able to find that practice report or those practice reports on the Ask the Insiders board at buckeyescoop.com. Of course, you do need to be a member of Buckeye Scoop to access that. So, it might be a great time to sign up to become a member today. We're making a movie. You can see that later this month too in a special world premiere, but you have to be a member for that too. Like this, there has not been a bad time to be a member of buckeyescoop.com. This might be the best time though. So consider signing up today. Sales pitch over. Now it's time to talk a little conference realignment, and college football conference realignment has been a hot topic this summer. And Nevada, you broke some significant new information on that front this week as well. The first thing I wanted to ask you about was the status of Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren. It sounds from your reporting like there are indications that he's maybe getting squeezed out of some of those conference realignment conversations that are happening right now.
Well, that's definitely happening, or I should say not happening, which is really an interesting position for a conference commissioner to be in. He's really taking a backseat and even beyond the backseat, like the cargo section on all these discussions. And a lot of people that I talk to close to these discussions are saying it's odd how far out of the loop he is on this, and how marginalized he's become from the presidents and from the ADs. And it seems as if it is almost like a de facto vote of no confidence for Warren. And when you put that in combination with some other comments that have been made, some other things that have been happening both publicly and privately, it seems like Warren is in a tenuous position in his leadership spot at the big, and I'm not sure how long he's going to be in that position.
Yeah, I mean, you used the phrase "vote of no confidence" there, and that is the exact phrase I thought of when I was at Big Ten Media Days last month, and Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith came out in front of a TV camera. Like this, there was no question that this was on the record. There was a TV camera recording him, and he said that he was on the committee that presented a list of possible candidates to the league, and Warren's name wasn't on that, and they chose him anyway. I mean, to me, that felt like a very public vote of no confidence from the league's most powerful member. I mean, am I reading too much into that?
No, I mean, I think it's safe to say that Ohio State's official position on Warren is that they're not a fan. And when you alienate Ohio State in the Big Ten, that could be the death knell, because Ohio State is the Big Ten, and the foundational member. They're certainly the member with the most influence and sway. And, I've heard it up and down the line from as high up as you can be at Ohio State that they're not fans of Kevin Warren. And that's not just, message board chatter or, groundless rumor. That's fact. And so I think when that happens, then it's really just going to be a question of, I think it's just a question of if, not when, or I should say when, not if, that he gets canned, because I just don't know how you survive when Ohio State is not supporting your tenure.
And Ohio State is one thing, and yes, it's the most powerful, the biggest, baddest team in the league, but they're just one team in the league. But on the other hand, for now, with conference realignment, where it's a period of time where the future of the league is being determined, I mean, this could be a stretch of just a few months that determines the direction of the next 40 years of this conference. For Warren as the league's commissioner to potentially be just getting shoved to the side, I mean, that has to be about as clear a, red flag there in terms of his long-term job possibilities as you could possibly have.
Yeah, well, I think that they're kind of masking it with, they want to avoid any claims of tortious interference or tampering or anything like that, and that's why they're allowing the broadcast partners to kind of take a lead role in this. But it's more than that. It's more deep seated than that, and it's more than that. And when it happens, just remember where you heard it. That I just don't see how he can survive, in a position where you're not being supported by your most powerful members and being involved in the most important decision, or at least not leading the most important decision, as you said, that could affect the conference for the next 4 decades. And you're not present. That certainly is telling.
Now, all right. So you're sort of, let's have you lay down a marker here. Give me a prediction. Yes or no? Is Kevin Warren the Big Ten commissioner 1 year from today?
I hate timing stuff, and inevitably, whenever I time it, one of my pet things is timing these things is always dicey because inevitably you'll be wrong, and there'll be other things that'll affect that. I'd say within 2 years he won't be there. Within one, I just think it's a question of it. They're not going to want to have it be this public nasty breakup or anything like that. It's going to have to be these leaving for greener pastures. And for some opportunity that he just couldn't pass up, and that's how this thing will come down. So I guess it's just a matter of how quickly they can find that position for him. But they're not. It's not going to be a public execution of Kevin Warren. It's going to be, Kevin decided to leave, and we're all so sad. But see you later. Leave your keys by the door and get out. So I'd say a year from now, I bet that he'd still be here. But 2 years from now, I'd say he'll be gone. That would be what I'd say as of now. I reserve the right to change my mind, but that's where I'm at right now.
We've talked in the past a lot about the Big Ten potentially adding one or more Pac-12 teams to the league, but there are some really appealing targets in the ACC as well. Every time we've had a conversation about those, however, it kind of hits a brick wall when we talk about the grant of rights issue. Can you briefly explain what the grant of rights is and why, this week it sounds like some teams in that league think that may not be the deal breaker that we once thought it was?
The grant of rights in a very oversimplified form for any lawyers that are out there listening is basically it's a contract that you sign that says, I am pledging the broadcast rights of our entity to the league. And in the event that I leave the league or that there's some other change, my rights still stay with the league. That's basically the outline of that. And that contract, that grant of rights contract, runs through 2036, which, as you said, that's the next 15 years. So that's pretty much taken a lot of the ACC teams out of the discussions. However, there have been a couple of ACC teams that have been studying this, and they feel that there's a legal theory that the grant of rights is overly broad and therefore is not legally enforceable, and that could be broken. There'd be a financial penalty involved with breaking it, but that it's breakable. And those two schools are Virginia and North Carolina, which are two very, logical and attractive expansion candidates for the Big Ten for a lot of reasons. Their academic reputation, their sports reputation, their geographic location, their AAU membership. But the fact that those two are looking at it, this could be seismic because this could potentially send off a Clemson to the SEC. You think about that, and the whole ACC could be up for grabs if this grant of rights is able to be broken. And I think it can be, although it's ultimately going to come down to dollars and cents, as these things usually do. But I think the ACC teams could be in play, and that's a pretty new development.
Yeah, and you went into a little bit of the detail on why this might make sense from the Big Ten side. What might make those two schools kind of appealing to the Big Ten. But let's explain why this makes sense for the schools, though, because this is, you might say, well, it's North Carolina, and you have the historical rivalry with Duke, and North Carolina State, and this is their historical home, and here's the thing: the Big Ten distributed $54 million to each school from TV last year. The ACC distributed $33 million. I will do the math for you. That is $21 million per school less than the Big Ten last year and every year moving forward. And, I assume for those schools, the conversation about whether joining the Big Ten would be good for business doesn't have to go much beyond that. But here's the thing. It's $21 million a year difference now. there's a reason to think that the number could actually be getting bigger in the short term.
Well, I think there's no question it's going to get bigger. It's only a question of how high. I've heard numbers as high as $100 million a year. So if it's $100 million a year compared to the next 15 years getting $33 million in the ACC, you're talking about almost $750 million difference just over that period of time. So it's a pretty compelling reason for these schools to be looking at options like this. And I don't think those numbers are crazy. And I think that's the only reason that teams would make a move like this. But I think that's the order of magnitude that we're talking about here. It's huge. These are not small differences. These are huge differences. And that's why, schools are looking at, I mean, who ever thought that Oklahoma, the prevailing wisdom was that Oklahoma would never leave without Oklahoma State, that there were state laws against it, and that there was, there'd be rioting in the streets and they could never leave. And look, they're gone. So, I think that the Duke UNC, the UNC NC State thing, there's lots of different ways that cat could get skinned, when you're talking about $750 million over the next decade and a half. So something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about that level of difference with $100 million for some schools and $33 million for others, you're not talking about a Power Five anymore. I mean, you would assume the SEC's new contract is probably somewhere in that same neighborhood as the Big Ten's. At that point, it's a Power Two. And then the drop off to the other conferences is like the drop off from the Power Five right now to like the Sun Belt and the CUSA and the MAC. I mean, it's like orders of magnitude different. And, at that point, you've got two super conferences, and then everyone else is just kind of like also playing the sport, but kind of at a different level, which is, I mean, it's crazy to think about, but it may not be quite as far off as people might think. Another ACC school that I keep wondering about is Georgia Tech. I mean, it's an excellent academic school. It's an AAU member. That's the Association of American Universities. It's a really prestigious group of universities. It's functionally a requirement for schools to join the Big Ten to be an AAU member. Georgia Tech is one. Virginia, North Carolina also members. Georgia Tech also located in one of the fastest growing cities, one of the fastest growing states in the United States. I mean, to you, is that a school the Big Ten would look at as well?
I think so. And I think, to kind of dovetail on your earlier point, I think the two super conferences is really the race. I mean, people would keep asking what's the ultimate number, but I think the ultimate number is probably 24. I think that's how big these conferences are going to be. And like you said, there's probably only going to be two of them. So at that point, are you adding to Georgia Tech? Are you adding to Duke? Who else comes with you from the ACC? Who else comes from the Pac-10? There's lots of different combinations, but Georgia Tech makes so much sense for so many different reasons. And people have long talked about them being a potential good target for the Big Ten. And I think with this new broadcast agreement coming down, that's certainly a school to keep a careful eye on for sure.
Well, this is conference realignment, fall camp for Ohio State. There is a ton going on right now. As I may have mentioned earlier, we are making a movie. This is going to be a very, very, very busy and very exciting month at BuckeyeScoop.com. If you are not a member, let me just tell you, you should become a member. There is a ton going on there right now. If you want to know what's going on with the Buckeyes, inside practice, even when no one else is there, Buckeye Scoop is a place to do it. Nevada is churning out nuggets, churning out inside practice reports every single day. And there are people who just show up for the first game and are like, "Oh, who's the quarterback this year?" And if that's you, that's fine. This is, we are not here to gatekeep your fandom. If you are someone who wants to know a little more, wants to know, if you can name all 5 running backs in the Ohio State depth chart right now, you are probably the type of person who would really enjoy membership at BuckeyeScoop.com. Comes with access to our Ask the Insiders board, our incredible team of insiders, and so much more, including some really fantastic live events coming up later this month. You can sign up today at BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, make sure you check out all of our great podcasts. Bill Green and Mark Givler just released the first Vegas Knows podcast of the season. Always a fantastic listen on gambling and lines and all that kind of stuff. It is a sure sign that football is right around the corner. And that is just one of the great podcasts on our network of podcasts. You can find those on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. And finally, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. If you are watching it on YouTube, at the end of this video, there's going to be a little thing that pops up that has a new video on one side, another video you might want to check out from our channel, but also a little logo on the right-hand side, a little circular Buckeye Scoop logo. If you click on that, it'll subscribe you to our YouTube channel. And what will happen then is magically you will get notified every single time we post a new video. It doesn't cost anything. It just comes straight to you free of charge. You get notified every time we post a new podcast, every time we post a new practice report, video from inside practice, interviews with players and coaches, all of our great content. It's all free. It's all at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. If you subscribe, you'll get notified every time I post a new video, so you never miss a thing. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.